In countries like Bangladesh, women don't necessarily feel comfortable talking in the open. There are lots of taboos while asking and seeking for advice. Where do these women go when they have questions to ask about their body or to have a network of support?
যে আমার একটা শারীরিক সমস্যা হয়েছে আমি ভয়তে কাউকে বলতে পারতেছি না।
Maya is an anonymous messaging service that helps women connect to experts, doctors, therapists.
We get all sorts of questions, mainly gynecological, baby care, pediatrics, even psychosocial and legal questions.
মায়া অ্যাপসটা আমার জীবনে আত্মবিশ্বাস অনেক কিছু জানতে পারতেছি, নলেজটা বৃদ্ধি পাইতেছে এটা দ্বারা।
People want to use Maya in remote villages because there are all these barriers, geographical, financial, social issues. Because it's free, Maya has really helped me to take Maya to those last users.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Startup Talks. Once again, we are blessed to have really special people on the talks here. We are joined today by Ivy Huq Russell. Ivy is the CEO and founder of Maya, a very health tech kind of application trying to solve health issues. Started off in Bangladesh, then it's recently partnered with Jazz in Pakistan, and it's looking to expand to Sri Lanka as well. So it's got a really beautiful journey. So we're going to talk about that with regards to Ivy. Ivy has been also been the young global leader at the World Economic Forum and a mentor at Google Launchpad. Hey Ivy, how are you doing? Thanks you for joining us here on Startup Talks. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Tamirai. Thanks so much for having us and Maya and myself.
That's great. Maya has been a bit under the radar in Pakistan, right? And not out in the open. I just recently saw news that Maya is coming to it's entered into Pakistan actually. That's great. I'm a firm believer that startups and small businesses will be the creators of opportunities in the future and will take economies forward. And when I saw that, so I think Maya is a great example of cross-pollination. And through technology, startups are expanding within the region. So that's good to know. But we'll talk about that later. What's Maya all about then? What's your story? You started off in investments, then went into Healthtech, and then Maya came into being.
Yeah. So, yeah, happy to share the story. I just a bit of a background about myself. I grew up in a small town called Chittagong in Bangladesh, and my parents and we lived there. Then I went to Dhaka for my O levels and A levels because at that time there weren't any good O level A level schools in Chittagong. And then from there I went to UK. I did my higher studies in economics and finance. I actually wanted to be a painter. I used to love art and design and drawing and painting, but I wasn't allowed by my dad to become a painter. So huge shift. So my next favorite subject in university was economics. So I did economics, and then I did economics and finance. I worked in hedge funds and investment management for about 7 years. Then from there, that was in the UK. The entire my London days were spent mostly inside those banks where I worked for a hedge fund and a investment management firm. And then for about 1.5 years, when I went to US, I worked in a private equity firm for 1.5 years. So around the move, during the move that I was making from London to San Francisco, that's when my mom, you asked how Maya came, was basically Maya is my mother's name.
Okay.
And that's when she had cancer, and I was also expecting my child So my life took a bit of pause. I took a back seat and I started thinking more. And I, of course, went to Bangladesh to spend more time. I was in the US, but I went to Bangladesh to spend more time with my mom. So she fought breast cancer very bravely. But around that time, when I was also pregnant, I started to see the world, our region differently. Like, where do people go, particularly women, when they have a very private question to ask about their body, but not just in the stigma and the taboo challenges, but also in a correct medical information kind of thing. Because particularly for when I was the first time mom or first time pregnant, there was so many information that was not so something as normal as pregnancy wasn't so normal in our part of the world that it was in London. So that made me think a lot. And even for my mom, who medically overcame breast cancer, also fell into a little bit of a depression while going through this treatment, did not want to go see a therapist because of the social stigma. People are going to see her in the waiting room. So with all that, I started the blog called Maya. I was still working full time in private equity, but that blog became very popular very soon in Bangladesh, because I think somehow, because the articles came from heart, because it was all our young mothers writing it. My friends, my cousins, my family, we all wrote blogs, and it was our sufferings about breastfeeding, mastitis, childbirth. So it became very popular, and very soon I started to look at the gap in the market, which was like, they're writing and reading this, articles, but there needs to be a conversation. And that's where the service side of Maya was born, where people could anonymously seek consultation and get connected to doctors, and then later on to licensed doctors, so that they don't suffer from the vast amount of medical information per se that they get on Google and other places. So that was like the start of Maya, where from a blog, we felt it should be a service where they get connected to experts, licensed experts on medical information. And then from medical health, we have, like, for the last 1.5 years, we've started to focus on mental health as well, because we feel that they are very directly correlated.
Yeah. So, um, taking into consideration these sensitivities, obviously you started off from a blog concentrated on a particular segment in healthcare. I believe it has now evolved into covering all aspects of most aspects of healthcare services. Am I right?
You're correct. So I started with what was very close to my heart, that was pregnancy and breast cancer.
Yeah.
I was pregnant myself, and my mom had breast cancer. So these were the two topics that I started with. And I think till today, moms are our most loyal user base in Maya. And, and I've seen it firsthand, how firsthand moms are often very nervous, often very lack of knowledge prevails in terms of what they should do about their first time pregnancy. So started with that. Then overall sexual reproductive health became very, very big, because in our region, as you know, as kids, we are never given sex education, as my kids are given right now in other countries. So it's very normal to see that the inundance of consultations that we get on Maya is on sexual reproductive health. So we really elaborated on that. And right now it covers most of the healthcare topics for medical health and physical health. And then we have started to add mental health to that. Initially, when we started talking about mental health, there was a resistance, again, connected to the stigma and taboo around us. But as we started to talk more in a very scientific manner about mental health, for example, excessive blood loss can create to mental health issues, or, the hormones in your body during pregnancy can cause. So as we started talking and writing more blogs about it, people started to take mental health a little bit more like something that they might need treatment, and it's normal. So right now, yes, to your question, we cover almost all angles of physical health and certain parts of mental health.
Okay, that's great. Maya also raised, I think, about $2.2 million in funding back in February, right? And that's actually helped you guys to scale within Bangladesh and into the region. But first, I'd like to know, I was reading somewhere that Maya also is heavily reliant on technology. It's good to see a nexus between technology and healthcare service provision, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are, I think you're using NLP and AI and
Mm-hmm.
all of those technologies on your platform. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Thermobile, as I was saying, when I was first launching Maya, uh, I come from a research background, so I've done a lot of like, I wanted to find the gap in the market, like where's the, I'm sure like, for Bangladesh or our region, the patient to doctor ratio is like 4,000 to 1. The patient to psychiatrist ratio is staggeringly like 1 million to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to scale this service, like it wasn't possible just by using human experts, right? So we had to use technology as an enabler. We had to use technology to scale. And the way we wanted to do that, we took a very heavy bet on messaging first. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in the early days, everyone was like, oh, messaging, internet, app, not sure, like
Mm-hmm.
how it's going to do. But with messaging, what we saw, one of the crucial things Maya was able to build, at least in Bangladesh and hopefully in Pakistan as well, is we built the trust with the users because they share so much personal information with us. If they don't trust the platform, they won't come and talk to us. And that trust was built as we worked on the NLP, the natural language processing of Bengali. So we started getting hundreds to thousands of consultations per day right now. And with that, we train our AI and NLP to make the most frequently asked questions answered through AI, and the complex ones goes to our human experts. This was the only way we thought we could scale. For example, right now, on a good day, we answer about 8 to 10,000 consultations per day in Bangladesh,
Huge.
and that's not possible with just human experts involved. So as soon as a consultation comes in, our AI tries to understand the urgency, complexity, the size, and the relevance of the consultation, and it matches it to the right expert. So that's the first way we try to solve the supply issue, because all of us, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, we are all working with a finite supply of experts. So we just have to deal with it. And Maya was also lucky to be the only company from Bangladesh to be in Google Launchpad Accelerator, which really helped us to understand how that NLP could be built further with high accuracy, because we're talking about healthcare here, and unless we have high accuracy of our answers, we don't release it. So we have over 450 categories of consultation that comes in. And I think so far we have released 120 categories for AI, and the rest is still getting trained. And by release, I mean that we only release certain categories of consultations once it reaches a certain accuracy, which is 90% and above. Anything that is below 90%, we don't release it. And with that same data set that we have created or we have received, we can now build the NLP for Urdu, for Arabic, and for other regions. So our plan, hopefully, is to try to serve and cater the market who faces similar situation and culture and stigma in regions like such as Bangladesh, Pakistan, and maybe Saudi Arabia, and expand in that region.
That's good to know. So how's your journey been of entering into Pakistan? What got you here?
Yeah.
You were telling me about earlier about the some investors with some degree of base in Pakistan, and the partnership with Jazz. I mean, that's something really exciting. Can you
Yes.
share some light on that?
Yes, absolutely. So we've been looking at, I think, just to take a step back, when we started Maya, we always wanted it to be a regional play. We wanted, because when I was looking at the problem was just not very specific to Bangladesh. It was also, relevant to the other region around us. And then we had a couple of investors on board. One of the investors, Osiris, had a strong network connection in Pakistan, which has helped us to work closely with Jazz Cash, and then eventually be their health partner on their app, which is a huge deal for a company like Maya. I mean, the work up to it, the engineering work that was required, ended up being a long time. We worked together, the JazzCash team and Maya Bangladesh team worked for about close to 9 months together to get this live. And as I was saying earlier, that it's still at a very nascent stage and there's lots to be done. Um, and it's really, really exciting because when we started in Bangladesh as well, 4 years back, we had the same stance in the sense that we were partnered with Robi, which is the second largest telco in Bangladesh. And it really helped to get the word out for something like Maya that was present. Now, the difference between 4 years ago in Bangladesh and now in Pakistan is huge because people are already now very used to virtual care, telehealth medicine. The content that we used to put in Robi before was very different than what we do. So with JazzCash, we have just entered into the service like directly. Whereas in Robi, back in the day, we used to give content like, do you know what Maya does? Do you know what a health tech company, like, do you know what I mean? Like educating what healthcare, virtual healthcare is, telemedicine is, because there was still a lot of like ambiguity around it. So right now, as they are rolling it out to, they haven't rolled it out to 100% of their user base. As they do, we're really excited. Some of the features are not even launched. Like, for example, our video consultation is not yet launched. It'll be launched in the second phase. As we launch them more, we're very excited to be able to fulfill our mission, what was basically to take healthcare to anyone possible who needs it, who does not necessarily have the access or the bandwidth to go and get good quality healthcare. So, as JazzCash say, like, to take healthcare in your hands and to be able to serve millions of users. So we're really excited about that. Besides JazzCash, we also want to launch Maya on a standalone basis, right? So anyone who opens the app sees a different interface, sees the Pakistan app, and they can download it from the Play Store. And those are, it's engineeringly challenging. Like, how do you have one app that, like Uber and Grab, there's a huge amount of investment and engineering work that goes behind. But our aim is that wherever you can open Maya, it's as simple to use and it's showing in your local language. Because for us, the main thing is, I think you can gain trust from users if you're communicating to them in your local language. So for us to be able to speak to them in Urdu or in a Urdu bot is very important. Same as, speaking in Bengali or Bengali AI answering their consultations. And then again, as you mentioned, that Pakistan right now is in a very hot space for, raising money in the startups. There are, similar competition for Maya in Pakistan, and some of them I learned from, and I'm a huge fan of, and I've spoken to some of the founders, such as from Sehat Kahani and a few others, and really excited. I think particularly for the region like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, one or two or three health tech startup is not enough. Like, we need a lot more. And the more we are, I think the better the ecosystem will become and the better the service will become.
This thing that you've built, I think if you look at it, compare it with health tech startups within the region, I think Maya has got a big edge because of the technology that it is infusing into its operations. And if you look, because being a person of strategy myself, right, and advising startups myself, I think it's actually got a huge edge over a lot of competition. Even I don't know the situation in Bangladesh, but I know in Pakistan that it does, as long as it comes in big into the ecosystem, into health tech, because over most health tech services are either digitizing access to pharmacies, or maybe to some degree access to health advice. But what Maya is, and from what I understand from your conversation, I think it's got a big edge on in what it is providing. If I am maybe able to give some input down the road, right, to help it scale within Pakistan, I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
That's great. Now, Moving on, coming on to some technicalities. This is also for my own understanding as well, and for other people maybe who might be working in the health tech space in Pakistan or in Bangladesh, because the audience is going to be in both countries, I think. Now, if you look at the technical aspect, I know that in Bangladesh, you guys have been there for like, you started off in 2014 or 15, I believe, right, with the blog, and then the app about 3, 4 years back, right? So you've
Yeah.
obviously grown quite a bit, and technology is now settled in. It's well coordinated with the operations and the application itself. Um, as far as one technical aspect that keeps hitting me since I saw Maya, that okay, fine, it's here in Pakistan, but in Bangladesh, it's easier for doctor consultations
Mhm.
to be provided in Bengali or in English to to a certain segment of society. But when you go into markets like Pakistan and then Sri Lanka even, right? Language is
Mhm.
a big barrier, as you just said yourself. So how are you going to cover that, right? Obviously, when you talk of consultations, you would need local advisors as well, like local
Mhm.
medics and doctors who can
Yep.
come in and pitch in. Some applications I know of, I'm not going to take names here, who might be competing, but they're not as technologically advanced as Maya is, right? That I can say
Mhm.
for sure. So what's Maya doing about the language barrier? And mm, uh, what I perceive is that if it's to scale within Pakistan, it's going to grow quite. It'll have to grow quite a bit with regards to manpower as well. So, can you just
Mhm.
talk us through that?
Yeah.
Maybe a
Yeah. Yeah.
bit technical here. Sorry about it.
No, Dharmabai, no, absolutely spot on. And I think what I mentioned before is without language, I don't think a service-based company would survive, because that was our first bet when we even started in Bangladesh, that we had to deliver service in pure Bangla. In fact, 80% of our consultation comes in Bangla, then 15% in Bangladesh, and only 5% in English. So English is like only 5%
Yeah,
of our
it's a small
consultation, right?
segment. Yeah.
So very small segment. So similarly, so the data, so we have answered close to 4.5 million consultations to date in Bangladesh, Maya, right? That has formed a huge data set for our annotators, for our engineers, for our AI experts. And they can easily condense that down into not even like 600, 700,000 data sets and convert it and train it into to Urdu, right? So it first gets translated back to English, then to Urdu. And we build the bot for Urdu. And when people are asking consultations in Urdu, the AI is responding back in Urdu. And of course, and one thing I do want to highlight, that our AI is very human vetted, which means every answer that we are saying is correct according to the threshold. A human expert is vetting it, so it's a little costly for us because human experts are spending time to vet those answers, but
Is there
it's
a
100%.
Sorry, is there a minimum degree of accuracy to it that is assigned to it? Like,
Yes, yeah, yes. So we don't release any category, say category pregnancy or category cancer. We don't release any category until it reaches 90% and above.
okay.
Usually, usually it's around 95%, but anything above 90%, otherwise we don't release it.
Yeah.
So for Urdu as well, so AI is human vetted, and then we have built, right now we have a small team of 10 experts, licensed experts in mental health and health, answering complex questions. And how they manage it is basically they can vet those Urdu answers, and then they answer the complex questions. It's similar to Bangladesh, the most frequently asked questions such as on menstruation, headache, those are easy to answer. Then they get surfaced to AI, and then the more the complex ones are gone to human. So language was definitely one of our first problem that we wanted to crack, or the challenges we wanted to crack, because we knew that going into another market and just answering in English is not gonna, we're not gonna have any competitive basis there. And we're doing the same with right now. It's going to take a little bit of time, but right now we're also building our Arabic AI and NLP as well. But it's all coming from that same data set of that we have gathered over 4 years of close to 4.5 million text consultations. And each consultation is a unique set of data about each one of our users. It's very rich data set that helps us to understand and make those answers more customized. So absolutely 100% Tamrupai, that language is at the forefront. And we've had even linguists work with us to make sure that the tone and the because of how we translate in English or Bengali may not sound the same in Urdu. So we've had linguists work with us as well to make sure at least it's the appeal and the tone is similar to Urdu or the local language.
Okay. And what about the team? Is it going to be continue to be based out of just Bangladesh, or you're going to have you might need a bit of it in Sri Lanka and Pakistan, I believe,
Yeah.
if you're opening up shop here.
Yeah, so Sri Lanka, our deal, we've been in Sri Lanka before Pakistan, and the deal with Sri Lanka is very straightforward. It's basically they wanted to open, we have launched with Dialog, which is their second largest telco, and they wanted to have something like Maya, but they, instead of building the whole thing, they licensed our technology and they white labeled it and they called it Yeheli, which I think means bold in their language. So they just pay a technology licensing fee every year. So that has been revenue wise good, and we just giving them technology. With Pakistan, we just right now have 3 operational person, and the rest of the team is medics, like experts, licensed experts. And we plan to have a country manager and a chief commercial revenue officer or commercial officer there in place very soon. And once then if we are successful in our next next funding round, then we want to kind of properly have the Pakistan team up and running as well, and then also have engineering deployed there. Right now the entire engineering team is based out of Dhaka, serving both Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Pakistan.
This is something really cool in my opinion, because it's wonderful to see how cross-pollination in startups within the ecosystem actually is creating opportunities. In some way or the other, Maya is a great example. I don't know if I've missed out on anything. If you'd like to add something, because we're almost coming to the end of time here. This is absolutely something wonderful, something really exciting. If you wish,
Thank you.
if you would like to convey a message to your supposed users in Pakistan,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. No, I mean, the Maya team and myself are super excited and scared. We've worked 9 months behind it. The Jazz Cash team feels very strongly about us, and they've been very supportive. So hopefully, we're really hoping and praying that it's a partnership that they're proud of, and we obviously gain users and traction that we have gained in Bangladesh. And most importantly, hopefully everyone gives it a try, and then we gain their trust, and then we can be their healthcare partner.
That's great. Health tech and ed tech are two spaces within the tech ecosystem that have huge scope, because of market dynamics might be different, but countries dynamics might be a bit similar, because of huge amount of the population living in remote areas with difficulty in mobility, difficulty in access to all these services. So I think it's got a huge scope to grow. So Ivy, it was wonderful to have you on the talk here. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully somebody has some learnings to take from it. It was really insightful for me. And if you are sometime in Pakistan, I'd love to meet up for over coffee.
Same.
And if
Yeah,
there's anything,
absolutely.
sort of support I can extend, you know how to reach out to me. I'd be happy to.
That's very much needed. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Take care.
rest of the year ahead then. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. too. Thank you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye.